and today I'm going to go through some of the books that I read last month. So first, last month I read East of the Mountains by David Guterson. I had previously read Snow Falling on Cedars in high school and I loved it, and this has been sitting on my shelf for a very long time. I picked it up not really knowing anything about it. I hadn't even really read the blurb, I just knew that it was David Guterson, an author that I enjoyed. When I read the blurb, which is just melancholy, I guess, a story of a man's journey. He has cancer, he is setting out to end his own life. His plans change because of unforeseen events that affect his journey. I won't go into what any of those events are, but it takes him on a very different journey than he has planned from the outset, and it was really just a lovely and sad but very beautiful book. It does deal with some pretty heavy topics and themes, but I really loved the focus on the landscape in this book. It's snow-covered mountains, canyons, sage lands and orchards on the verges of the Columbia River. The story of this man's life throughout, like the backstory of his life alongside the journey that he's going on now as an old man, was beautiful and heartbreaking. There is also a film adaptation that has just come out which I have not seen and I would love to watch, but I don't know what I would watch it on. That was East of the Mountains by David Guterson. Loved it. After that I picked up Dear Ibis by Kate Liston-Mills. Kate is somebody that I went to university with. I have always loved her writing. She has this really gorgeous way of writing Australiana in a very down-to-earth way that isn't, I don't know, cringy or isn't parodying the Australian stereotypes. She has this beautiful balance of just the kind of Australian experience that I know from small country towns, nuances of experience in Australia. It's really beautiful. So her first book was The Waterfowl Are Drunk. The second book, Dear Ibis, you can see there's a bit of a bird theme going on here, set around the south coast town of Campbell and also a couple of other places around the coast. But this was a beautiful short story collection. As with The Waterfowl Are Drunk, each story can stand alone, but when you read them together there is a bit of a narrative that flows through them. It does seem to follow a particular character, Georgia, and different parts of her life growing up, being a young adult, being an adult, having children. So there is a bit of narrative spotted throughout, but each story does have its own importance and its own poignancy, and it's really beautiful. Again, the descriptions of place are really gorgeous. The other thing about this book is that it has some, I don't know, illustration is the right word, but some art throughout it, and the art is by, I think Bettina Kaiser has done the cover, and the artwork inside is very similar in style. An ibis, another bird. I loved this. I loved reading the Australianness of it, and it hurt. There were several points when I was actually physically aching because of this book, and it hurts, but you keep reading and you can see yourself in parts of it, and I don't know, it was lovely. I highly recommend picking up Dear Ibis by Kate Liston-Mills, and also The Waterfowl Are Drunk is another superb collection of stories from Kate. So get yourself a copy of this one. Keeping on the Australiana theme, I then picked up That Eye, the Sky by Tim Winton, another Australian author. Didn't love this one. I had picked up this book randomly from a secondhand book stall. It was $2. It's very short at only 140 odd pages. It started out with such promise, and again, this is another one that I didn't know any background to. I just saw that it was by Tim Winton and picked it up. The The story is about a kid called Ort Flack and his family. They live out a bit in the sticks, and Ort's father is in a car accident. He is left in a coma. I thought that the story was going to be about Ort and his family dealing with this tragedy and the father figure being lost to him and what that meant. It was not that story. Basically, another character, a very religious man who is homeless at the time that they meet him, has been down on his luck. We don't know a lot of his background or story. His name is Henry Warburton. He falls in with the family and starts to look after the father who is in a coma. The end just went to a really weird place. I felt like I missed something with this book, like that there was some thing that had happened that I was just like, I felt very blindsided by the ending, and I didn't like this much at all. In keeping again with the Australiana theme, and after the disappointment that was That Eye, the Sky, I picked up Into That Forest by Louis Nowra. This was fantastic. This was another one that I didn't know anything about, except that it's written by an Australian author, Louis Nowra. I thought that this was going to be a bit of a creepy story for Halloween, given the cover. It wasn't that creepy, actually. The premise of the book is two girls in the 1800s. It's old-timey, anyway. Two girls in olden times, Australia. There is an accident and they are left in the woods to fend for themselves. They fall in with some Tasmanian tigers, which are now currently extinct. They do not exist. They fall in with the Tasmanian tigers, and the Tasmanian tigers look after the two girls and basically raise them. And it's the story of these two girls being like discovering their wild animalistic side and then coming back into the world as we know it, and having to rediscover their culture, rediscover their identity, their relationship with each other and other people. Again, not a very long book, but it does have several beautiful images with the chapters. The formatting of the book was really lovely. I read this book in a single day. I spent the entire day reading this book. I read very slowly, so yes, a book this big did take me an entire day. I really fell into the vibe of the narrative, and it really grabbed me and sucked me right in. The voice of the protagonist is, it's first person, and it's written in a dialect, I would call it, because of the character's background, and I loved it. I loved this book, Into That Forest by Louis Nowra. Thought it was great. And so to slide away from the Australiana theme into a proper spooky Halloween theme, I picked up The Sister Who Ate Her Brothers and Other Gruesome Tales by Jen Campbell, and illustrated by Adam D'Souza. This was so fun. The actual stories were stories that I hadn't really heard of before. I could see that there was some great instances of representation for people who were deaf, queer, like breaking down gender norms. Like, I don't know, it was just really fun and a great mix of, I know this is targeted at kids, but as an adult it was such a fun read, and there were parts that made me go ugh, and all of the illustrations are really beautiful. This will make no sense to you out of context, but a giant house is chasing a girl riding a spider. I'll say no more. It's just like, I don't know, it's just really cool. I loved this. I think the young people in your life will love it, and I think the young at heart in your life will love it as well. And then I haven't actually finished this book yet. I think I've got like 2 stories left to read, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. It is Toil and Trouble, 15 Tales of Women in Witchcraft, edited by Jessica Spotswood and Tess Sharpe. So this is a collection of short stories that all focus on women and witchcraft. It has such an eclectic mix of different kinds of stories, but this one had several that have stuck with me, and that when I was reading them, they're maybe like 20-page stories, right? And they fit so much world building and lore and character building into the narrative that as a reader I was like, I want to read a whole book of this, like this is amazing. And as a writer I was like, damn, like how did they do that? I wish I could write that. It's really opened my eyes in terms of the craft of storytelling, particularly around genre writing in short stories. There's such a craft to that, because any short stories they require talent and skill to write. You're doing a lot in a very small space, but to then add in the challenges of writing genre and fantasy and supernatural, doing even more in such a small amount of space, it was just fantastic. So that was Toil and Trouble, and these were all of the books. If you have read any of these or you want to chat about any of them, please leave a comment down below and I would love to talk to you. And I hope that you're having a great reading month as well, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.